Best thing about Matt's story is that it stays with you long after you read it. So it's one of those stories that when the next time the world is beating you down or you're facing a challenge that you don't think you can overcome, Matt's story will remind you to get from the long journey from I can't and I won't to I will. Matt could be speaking to a group of hundreds of people right now at the New York City Marathon Expo up at the Javits Center, but he's here talking to us today. So let's give him a warm Google welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Googlers, Matt Long. And we're going to start with a quick video.
Firefighter riding a bike to work was hit by a private bus this morning. 39-year-old Matthew Long is in critical condition.
His condition is grave, and I ask all New Yorkers to pray for him.
He was basically impaled by the bicycle seat. He lost his blood volume, people would estimate 4 to 5 times over. So if we took all the blood out of his body, gave it back, and did this 4 or 5 times, that's about how much blood he lost in about 10, 11 hours.
They said that it was serious and that he had about 1% chance to survive.
Matt, thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for
It's
having
great to have you here at Authors at Google. For those of you who don't know, this is the book, The Long Run, by Matt Long with Charles Butler, a great writer from Runner's World. So for those of you who don't know your story, and I'm guessing most of the folks in this room do, but maybe some folks are going to be seeing this on YouTube who don't know this story. Tell us about those terrible events that happened all the way back on December 22nd, 2005.
Well, if you lived in New York in 2005, it was a very cold winter, and it happened to be a time during Christmas when the city is at its peak for tourists and just people shopping alike. But the Transit Authority went on strike.
Oh yeah, I haven't forgotten that.
Yeah, and it was day 3 of the transit strike, and ironically, my last day at my detail at the fire academy. Mm-hmm. So I had no way to get to work. Actually, I could have gotten to work, but I couldn't get home.
Sure.
If the strike didn't end. So I rode my bike. And I got 4 blocks from my New York City apartment, and a private bus that was hired to bring their workers down below the restrictions that the mayor put in place made an illegal right turn and, ran me over.
Just ran you over.
Ran me over. And whenever I tell people I was run over by a bus, they're like, nah, come on. You look fine. You were hit by the bus.
Yeah,
what happened? Knocked you down, bro. I said, let's believe it or not. I said, for some reason, I didn't bounce off the bus. I was taken under the chassis of the bus.
You were basically crushed.
Crushed.
I'm going to read off some of the injuries. This is from your book. Compound fracture of the left femur and tibia, broken left foot, broken right shoulder. The seat post of your bike, it basically ripped right from between your legs and through your body.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Did you have to go there?
Even now it must feel painful. I mean, you've probably heard this story a million times. It's still painful to say. And by the way, you're bleeding to death.
Yes.
And you now have less than a 5% chance of living, perhaps even just a 1% chance of living. It's really hard to fathom. It almost doesn't sound real. You needed 68 units of blood.
In the first 10 hours.
In the first 10 hours alone. Mm-hmm. And the doctors said that you were losing 4 to 5 times your normal amount of blood.
Yeah. One of the interesting things about that day was, and I think the mind is just an incredibly powerful thing. And as soon as I got hit, I don't remember.
You don't remember any of this, do you?
I don't remember any of it because I think the mind said, listen, if this guy's going to survive, he doesn't need to have that memory because he won't survive mentally.
Yeah.
So I've gotten told all these stories from different people that were involved. And one of the stories, while I was under the bus, and the police and from the ESU and the rescue fire department guys were trying to lift the bus and then get me out. They were having such a hard time doing it because of my blood. They were slipping and sliding on the blood that was in the street.
God.
One of the police officers totally broke protocol and reached into my thigh and held my femoral artery shut because it was severed, and he needed to slow the bleeding down. And he did that with his bare hand, which is total no-no in the emergency service, protocol. We just don't do that anymore. You have to be gloved, you have to be protected, you have to take care of yourself, and I'm grateful that that guy
But that
did
saved your life.
That was the first step of saving my life, for sure.
Now, prior to the accident, you're a pretty darn good athlete. Ran the New York City Marathon, qualified for the Boston Marathon, something probably less than 1% of all athletes get to do who take to marathon running. Had some Ironman under your belt. So another thing that probably saved your life, according to the doctors, is the fact that you were in such amazing shape at this time.
Yeah, the doctors, I remember my mom telling me the doctor's coming out, and I can't believe that's got to be the worst part about being a doctor, a trauma doctor, is going out to a waiting room to tell the family the person you're working on may not make it through the night. And when my mom was told that, the doctor said basically he has a 1% chance to make it through the night. And my mom said, Doc, you don't understand. He's got to make it through the night. He just qualified for Boston Marathon. He's running in April. So I think it's that Irish Catholic stubbornness.
Yeah.
It's like, no, he's not going anywhere.
Of course. And it was that stubbornness, whether you were conscious or not, that probably saved you.
Yeah, and the doctor said flat out, once he realized that he was a runner too, my trauma surgeon, and once he realized that I was that fit to do a 3:13, he said that, that maybe there's a better chance that he could make this.
So this was a real tough time for your family, those close to you, and whatnot. And they kept by your bedside and saw you through it. Until
5 months.
5 months.
For 5 months, my family, there was constantly a family member at the hospital. There was fire department family at the hospital. And then my triathlon and running group at Asphalt Green, they were there as well. So it was kind of funny. My family, we talk about it now because it's funny now because I'm here and I don't look too bad without my shirt on. So I have an ego, they said when they introduced me. Right? Didn't he say I have an ego?
That was Murphy, Brian
Murphy
Yeah.
said that? Yeah, thanks, Murphy. My family jokes about it now because the fire department cooked for me for 5 months and my family. I wasn't eating food for 2, but they were cooked for every night. So Monday through Friday, you got chicken parmesan, spaghetti, pasta. Everything was, large quantities, comfort food.
Sure.
Saturday and Sunday, the triathlon crew came in, and you got vegetables and so healthy food. So my parents were like, this is great. Well, we'll get ready for Monday night.
Nice. Nice. What do you remember when you woke up? What was the first thing that went through your head when you finally woke up from this? It was almost like being in a coma.
Yeah, I mean, basically, we was out for like 5 or 6 weeks. Much like sitting on this stage, I woke up and there was a big white light in my eye. And I swear, am I?
Wow.
And I think the nurse, actually, this is not a PG show?
No, it's
okay, then I'll
it's
tell
cool.
you what my first word was. My first word was, fuck, I'm hungry.
Hungry. Firemen don't like eating, do they?
Yeah.
No.
And my dad looked at the nurse and apologized. And then said, I think he might make it. So that was his story for me, to tell me that was my first words. And my first memory was my brother Jim coming in telling me that I was, run over by a bus, and I kind of looked at him like, but I really couldn't move that well, and I was in the bed, and I had a stabilizer and an external fixator coming out of my abdomen, on my legs, and I just was looking around, I'm grabbing this metal, and he's like, sit tight. You're going to be okay. They're taking care of you. And I said, no. When can I go home?
Yeah.
And that was like my first question to him. When can I go home? And they were just like, you're going to be here quite a while.
Because before the accident, you were, if I can say, you were kind of like the, single guy in Manhattan, bit of a ladies' man, in shape. You own a couple bars. You're living the life. And now you wake up from this accident, and you're like, you literally couldn't move. So that was, I'm sure, really, really tough for you, for your psyche, just not just the physical pain.
Yeah, I mean, my life was turned upside down. And I was, I guess the consummate bachelor, I guess you want to call it, I had 3 bars, I was a firefighter.
You were living the life.
Living life, If I was an overnight guest, I didn't have to get up early and leave. I didn't work a regular schedule.
Nothing wrong with that.
You know, make the bed, make breakfast. Go ahead, honey. Yeah. It happened
Definitely
once in a
not
while. I mean,
Never. Your parents gonna be watching this? This is definitely not a PG
I won't.
talk.
They didn't have to get on YouTube.
Ah. So
My
we
father
fast.
said, "What's Google?" By the way, he said, "What's
He
Google?"
did?
Yes. He said, "What's Google?" I said, "I'll talk to you later." But they're older.
Are we gonna tell them a little bit about this afterwards? Can we
Yes,
set them
I'll
up
film
like
it.
a Google Plus account or something? That'd be great.
Is it like ARP? Do you have that with Google? All right, we worked that out.
So fast forward a bit, rehab, recovery. How many surgeries did you need just to live and just to sort of get yourself out of the hospital?
In 14 months, I went through 42 surgeries.
42
different
surgeries.
surgeries. It was kind of, you know, I remember like later on, after leaving the hospital, I think the count was up to like 33, and I knew I had 3 more surgeries to come. And every time I went into the operating room, you go and they prep you for surgery, then you sign your releases. And I remember one not so funny moment. I was just so frustrated and getting deeper and deeper into depression. When they came to sign the release, I wrote DNR on it.
Really?
And the nurse was like, no, that's not what we want. And my mother's like, what are you doing? But you had to get another release and sign it. But there was always 2 releases. There was always, this is the release for what we're hoping will happen when we open you up.
Yeah.
And this is the worst case scenario, what we might do, and then there'll be another surgery. And every time I went in, I wake up and I'd feel another hose or connection to my body, and I'd be like, this didn't happen, so I got to come back. So 42 surgeries in about 14 months.
Wow. So just to be able to walk and be released from the hospital was a very lengthy process.
Yeah, I mean, when I left the hospital, I was walking maybe 50 feet, and not unassisted. I was on those Canadian crutches, that you saw in the video, and then pretty much in and out of a wheelchair. My younger brother, who I call number 9, we have
Meaning you have a family of 9 kids. Yeah.
9 kids, 7
Those
boys
are
and
the
2
younger.
girls, and it's funny. If you look at a family picture, it starts off pretty tall, and number 9 is a little short. He was the fastest long, but he didn't get a lot of food on Friday nights. The little duckling gets kicked out.
So you're out of the hospital, you're trying to reacclimate to life, and it was obviously a tough time, as you just said. In fact, I remember we're both graduates of Iona College, and every year Iona sponsors a wonderful race called the Dolan Run, in honor of a friend of yours, right, Kenny Dolan. And I remember seeing you in previous years. Actually, let me clarify. I remember seeing the back of your NYPD, your FDNY jersey as you passed me on your way to the finish line.
Thanks for clarifying.
Of course. 2006, you're there, but you're in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
You didn't even look like yourself. And I remember that. And there was a great band there, and they played this. There was this "Long May You Run," I think.
Yep.
And they played that in honor of you.
Neil Young.
Yeah.
Long May You Run. It's a Hell or High Water, and
Hell or High
yeah,
Water.
they've been friends of mine for years, and they donate their time for that race every year, and the race is probably 18 years now.
So in the book, you described saying to, I don't know if it was your brother or a buddy of yours, you didn't have the heart to be there. It just wasn't you. In previous years, you would have been up there maybe accepting a prize for winning your age group or something along those lines, and maybe having a beer and a burger after listening to the band. You just wanted to get out of there.
I did. I remember my brother calling me up and saying, hey, today's the Dolan Run. And I was only out of the hospital now. It's always the first Sunday in June.
Yeah.
In Prospect Park. So I'm out of the hospital 2 weeks. I got out May 22nd. So 2 or 3 weeks I'm out of the hospital. I said, yeah, let's go. Let's see what happens. Because the Dolan family was great to me, and I just thought it'd be good to show up. And when they wheeled me into the after party for the race, listened to them play the song, and I was just like, I gotta get out of here.
And that
I
kind of
wanted to be
followed. That was
involved
kind
more
of
than I
a
was.
theme in your life a little bit after that. It was probably hard to just socially be out with your usual group of friends.
Yeah. Probably, obviously, you're in the hospital for 5 months, you're not a happy person.
Yeah.
And no one was really faulting me for not being myself. But it wasn't until I got home and there's not that bell at the side of the bed where you can, I need something from a nurse, or I need something from someone that now it's about, this is your life.
So you were depressed, majorly depressed.
Yes, I mean, it was, and getting worse.
And who brought you out of it?
Mom.
Your mom.
I went in for a doctor's appointment, and I was, at this point in my life, I was making deals with God. I was constantly, just fix this, just take care of this, and I'll deal with the limp, and I'll deal with a cane. I'll get through. Just give me this one thing. And when I went to this doctor's appointment, the one doctor said to me, Mr. Long, I don't think we're going to be able to help you. It's just, you just had too much muscle damage and nerve damage. So we left, and I just talked to my mom and dad. I said, listen, I'm so glad that you guys prayed for me, and your prayers were answered, and I lived. I said, well, I wish you would have prayed and prayed for me to die.
Wow. And it must be so hard for mom to hear a son say something like that.
Yeah. You never want to say that to your mom.
No.
And I was crying, she was crying, and I expected her to reach across the table and hug me. I was like, okay, this is when you hug me. This is when I need you right now. Beep, I'm hitting the button for the nurse. Hey, where's the nurse? And she just put her hands down on the table and said, enough's enough. She said, you have to think about all the things you've done before this accident, and you need to pick up the pieces and live your life the best you can.
It's tough love at a time when you needed it most.
Yeah. And I was just like, I was so taken back. She just said it. And basically she said, if you're going to do this and you're going to be miserable SOB the rest of your life, then do it by yourself. Leave us out. And
smart woman.
Yep. That jumpstart the whole train.
So at this point, you say to yourself, all right, I want to be an athlete again. And you went through a lengthy additional rehab recovery process, went to Arizona, worked with some great trainers out there. Tell us what it was like just to be able to run 1 mile. This is a guy who could run a marathon in well under 3 hours and 15 minutes before. Now you're struggling just to run 1 mile.
Yeah, what really happened is I didn't start to say I wanted to be an athlete again. I started to say I will be an athlete again. And that's when the training really kicked in. And I went to Arizona, and it's funny, I was emailing. I wanted to get away from New York. Okay, that was the first thing. I said, mentally, I need to be out of here. And I talked to my friend Frank Carino. I talked to my friend Noel Flynn. And I was like, I hope you guys don't mind. I hope this isn't like I'm bailing out on my support system. I said, but I need to change the scenery. I need to forget about everything. I mean, even the homeless guy outside Starbucks, when I would walk with my catcher, he'd go, hey, you're the bus guy.
Oh, man.
And I was like, oh, everyone knows me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I need to get out of
And the sunshine helps.
Yeah, and the sunshine helps, yeah. So I emailed a couple of warm weather facilities, and a couple of people emailed me back real quick saying, amazing story, you've been through so much. We'd help you, but you should have realistic expectations. And I was like, how can this person tell me to have a realistic expectation without even seeing me or knowing me? So I would just go, delete, get rid of it. And then I found, via Google,
Of course.
How else would you search the web? I found the place called the Functional Performance Center in Tempe. Very small, smaller than this room. And a young guy who went to Iowa, either Iowa or Iowa State, I'm not sure. But he emailed me back, and he was a runner, and he said, first of all, I would never tell anyone they couldn't run again.
And that's what you needed to hear, I'm
And
sure.
I moved out there 3 days later.
Wow.
Like I said, Frank Carino had just had his second child, and I said, Frank, I haven't flown since my accident. I don't know what to expect. I need help. He came with me, got an apartment, and I lived there for 3 months. And the first day, I said to them, now, how's all this going to help me run? And they said, well, let's strengthen your body, and then one day we're just going to do it. After 3 months, I went in, and they were like, let's go. Today's the day. And I was scared.
Of course. Probably scared you were going to topple right over.
Topple right up. I was like, whoa, you didn't prep me for this. Last night I could have been thinking about it. If you're doing an endurance race, the night before you visualize your race. Yeah. What can go wrong? How am I going to fix it? I didn't have any visualization for a mile. And we did it. We did it in 18 minutes and 24 seconds, I think. And we stopped at the half-mile turnaround point, and I was like, oof, okay. And we tried to work on my gait a little more. And then when I finished, we went into therapy.
So in a lot of ways, the same way you had to sort of learn to be a good endurance athlete the first time around, you had to learn it a second time, really.
Yeah, you know, I did the mechanics of running and things you take for granted. You know, when was the last time you got out of your chair and thought about walking? You know, we just do it.
Yeah.
And I had to do that. I had to think about even taking a step, and it's very, very odd.
So now you've completed one step in your recovery. You've actually successfully gone for a run, maybe a few runs. Now you tell your doctors, I want to run the New York City Marathon. What do they say?
My one doctor said I'm crazy, but then he said, but all you guys are crazy. He said, why would you run a marathon? Yeah, they didn't tell me not to try, but they said that I would tear myself up pretty good. And I said, I needed it. You know, I needed it for my head. I needed it for the mental recovery.
Yeah.
You know, I just needed to see that finish line to know that this was a part of my life that will never ever be behind me because of how I am now. But the comeback is over. I'm here, like that kind of thing.
You wanted your life back.
I wanted my life back.
And running, one of the biggest, along with your family, probably one of the biggest parts of your life, your past and your present life, I guess.
Absolutely.
Tell us about Marathon Day, when you finally came back.
So I had the fire department drive me to the start. I got a 3-hour head start with the Achilles Track Club. And I get a great story about the start of the marathon. So they pick us up in a van. It was myself, Noel, and Frank, because I had 2 buddies. I figured 40,000 runners are going to be coming from behind me. I said, you know what, maybe I need 2 people just to kind of make them go a little wider.
Sure.
And
why not? Lance Armstrong had it.
he had about 8. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And that's later in the book. Later in the book, we get to Lance.
Actually, let's talk about, let's pause 1 second. You got to meet Lance Armstrong after you, a little bit after you, about a year after you gotten hurt, yes?
Yes, I did.
Can you share that story real quick?
Yeah.
I love this story.
So, obviously the marathon, big part of my day, and, this weekend, the energy level is so great. So the guys in the fire department thought it'd be great to take me to the 2006 start. So they picked me up, and I was still in a wheelchair part-time, but I went with my crutches, and Lance was running. It was his premier marathon.
Sure.
And they got me to the start, and they kept tapping one of Lance's entourage on the shoulder, said, hey, we'd like, can you got a minute? Can Lance come over and say hello? This guy was on his bike, got hit by a bus. And Lance had his sweatsuit on, his iPod in his ear, and he's just getting tuned into the race. Meanwhile, all the pros are kind of like on the line in their little shorts and tank tops freezing. But Lance had his swim jacket on. 2 minutes, Lance, another piece came off, and he's getting ready. So they begged him, and my boss is a big Italian guy, and he just goes, screw this. He kind of pushes one of Lance's guys away, said, hey, Lance, get over here. Talk to this guy. So he comes over to me, and I said, Lance, come on. They gave you 50% chance. They said they gave me 1%.
1%
You got a minute? And at that moment, he was taking his thing off. Like, what'd you say? And I got the picture.
So that really got his attention.
It got his attention. And in his books, and when people talk about him, they say, you can't break him. You can't break his face. You never know how. I said, I broke him.
Nice.
I knew I got him right there.
You can take some credit for him breaking 3 hours for that day, I suppose, then.
Yeah.
Barely.
I think he did 2:58.
Yeah, right around there.
Well, he didn't have to get his own water.
That's true.
They were handing him water.
He got the star treatment.
Alberto Salazar. Come on.
Can't get a better pacer
If he
than
got
that.
me my water when I was running, I would have went well under 3:13.
2 years later, you're doing this. You're running the race. You got your buddies along with you to ensure your safety. You get to mile 3, and your family's there. What was that like?
Well, let me go back.
Okay, sorry. Go
Is
ahead.
this my interview or yours?
I'm pretty sure the book is by
I didn't
now
know this was
long.
going to be a comedy set, but this is pretty good. Let me go back to mile 1,
Okay.
because this is a great story in the book. My buddy Frank Carino's next to me, and the cannon goes off. They wish us well. There's about 35 challenge athletes. Single leg, double leg, single arm, maybe a blind runner, and then just, boom, cannon goes, and off we go. The first mile is uphill. And I'm looking in front, and I'm like, about 29 athletes just crested the bridge, and I'm back with Frank and Noel, and I say, am I in last place? Like, already? Like, we're not even at mile 1.
Wow.
And I can't really turn. My balance is really off. So I'm like, Frank, serious, tell me, am I in last place? And Frank said, Matt, don't worry about it. Keep going. We got a long day ahead of us. Frank, just turn around and tell me if I'm in last place. Now we're bickering. He's like my man wife. And we're fighting right there at mile 1. And he turns around, he goes, Matt, you're not in last place. Great, let's go. So we got my pace and we're going. And all of a sudden I hear this clicking noise. And I'm like, it's getting louder and louder. And I'm like, what's that? And Frank's like, oh no. So he knew what he saw when he turned around. And this Japanese runner, double leg amputee, just swinging himself on the crutches that I was using just 6 months ago to walk, passes me. And Frank goes, now you're in last place. I'm like, it's going to be a long day. That was mile 1. And mile 3 is when I had my first stop planned. I said to my family, I said this when I did a 3:13, I said, you guys can really come out and be on a marathon course. It'd be great to see you. But please know I'm trying to qualify for Boston. And if I run by you at 7 minutes pace, don't be mad that I didn't stop to say hello and you've been freezing waiting for me to come by. And I'm just not doing it. And in this race, I knew I'd be out there for about 8 hours. So I said, you're going to be at multiple spots. Mile 3 is the only time I'm stopping. And they were outside the church where we grew up in Brooklyn, and the whole family. And so I stopped, got rid of whatever I did after warming up for 3 miles, got rid of a shirt or something, and went on my way. And it was great to see them out there.
But you still had 23 miles ahead of you.
23.2.
23.2 to be exact. Obviously, this took a great deal of mental will, physical strength, just to get through it, just to not knowing if you might not finish, not knowing if you might fall over, but you did it. And it took you, what, around 7 hours?
7:21.
7:21.
7 hours, 21 minutes. You're allowed to clap.
Probably a wonderful day for you, wonderful step in your recovery, but this wasn't enough. You weren't done. You still had another act. What'd you tackle next as an endurance athlete?
I wanted to become the Ironman again. I wanted to hear Mike Riley say, you're an Ironman again. And I didn't know how I was going to do it because running hurt.
Yeah.
And not that it doesn't hurt anyone that does it.
Sure.
It just hurt me a hell of a lot more. And basically during my training for the marathon, I only got up to 14 miles. And Frank and Noel had run that. Frank and Noel both are sub 3 hour marathoners. So to ask a guy who can run a 3 hour marathon to run for 7.5 or 8 hours.
Takes a lot out of him.
It takes a lot out of the person. And I had said to them, if I run 3 miles in Central Park, it takes me 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then I can't do anything for 2 more days. So how am I going to train for a 140.6 mile day as an Ironman? So I just switched it and did it all on the bike, 250 to 300 miles a week on the bike, and maybe a mile on Saturday. But I knew.
Was it hard to ride a bike after what you'd been through? Yeah, I had 2 choices. I had a bike custom made for me because I have a leg length difference and some weaknesses, so balance was an issue. And so I went to this guy, Paul Levine at Signature Cycles, and he built me a bike. And when he called me and told me it was ready, I was like sitting in my apartment like, now I have a bike. It's always the big thought, I'm going to run a marathon and do this, but when you actually get in to do it, now I'm like, I have a bike now, I just have to go get it. So I got my car and I said, if I go over to the west side and pick up the bike and put it in my car, I'm going to look at it in my apartment for a couple of days. Yeah.
So instead I got dressed to cycle and hailed a cab. So I was forced to get on the bike. And I went like corner to corner and looking and
real gingerly.
It was mentally tough. And the only tough part, the toughest part about it was when a bus went by.
Of course.
And I'd be standing on the corner, like looking at that 8-inch space between the chassis and the street and go, how the hell did I get under there? Then I look at the scar on my stomach and say, I know how I got under there. They stuffed me.
So just to ride through New York City streets.
I rode through the streets, got into Central Park, did 1 lap and went home. And I knew I had a lot of work ahead of me because I was exhausted.
Yeah.
6 miles.
So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Ironman distance, it's a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike ride followed by a full marathon. And so this was what, 2009?
2009.
Back in Lake Placid.
Lake Placid. And you have 17 hours to finish. 17 hours and 1 second, they pat you on the back and say, come back next year. No medal, no t-shirt.
1
nothing.
second off, you're not an Ironman.
That's why it's called Ironman.
Yeah.
Firm believer that that's okay, to have a cutoff. And I didn't think that I'd be anywhere near 17 hours. I thought I'd be, 15, 16 hours. I was 12 minutes slower on my swim and about a half hour slower on my bike. And I knew I had a long day ahead of me on the marathon because I only did a 7:21 in New York. And, there's all sorts of people that go around, well, if you could do a 3-hour marathon, then you should be able to do a 3:35, 3:40 in an Ironman. There's a lot of different equations you could mentally put together for yourself. So I figured 8 hours.
Yeah.
And I wound up running 7 hours and 30 minutes and finishing 16:58:06.
Just made it.
Best part about it, they were giving me my medal and they wanted to interview me and they started saying, wait, there's one more out there. And at 17 hours on a button, this guy comes in. He'll be forever known as Last Man Paul.
Last Man Paul, I love it.
And he comes in and they go, give him his medal, this is unbelievable. Because I was the guy they were following with the camera all day, and they were like, at mile 23, the guy from Ironman came out and said, Matt, I'm JD from Ironman, and I'm here to make sure you get in here GPS, and you can tell me how fast I had to run at this moment. So I was the everyday hero.
Yeah.
So I said to JD, JD, have you ever had a hero go to 0 in less than 17 hours? And he said, nope. I said, I don't want to be the first, so let's get moving.
Here's your motivation.
And so Last Man Paul finishes, and I put the medal over his neck, and I say, what happened to you? And he's like, what? I said, what happened to you? I said, what are you talking about? He's just been out there for 17 hours, and he's confused as well. And I'm like, I was run over by a bus.
Oh, no.
You just finished. What happened to you? He's like, nothing. I was like, yes. I was afraid maybe he'd say double-decker bus. The cameras go right off of him, and that's it. My story's over. I wouldn't be here. Paul would.
If you go to YouTube and just type in Matt Long, Lake Placid, a really cool clip comes up. It's grainy. It's a little wobbly. The noise is deafening from the crowd. You'll have to turn your speakers right down. It's a really inspiring clip. You can see Matt finish.
And that's my brother Frank screaming, "Love you!"
That's your brother.
Like, oh, Frank.
Probably the
That's his
loudest
video.
one. And then you do see Last Man Paul just before the clip ends. It's pretty cool. Speaking of YouTube, how have you been able to utilize technology, social media, to sort of really get the word out about you and about your cause, the I Will Foundation?
I'll tell you a story about one of my mentors who helped me recover. When I was home in my apartment and wasn't able to get around by myself, my brother Eddie, number 9, he was living with me, but I was trying to give him his space, get out. And I said, I had a big box of cards and letters that I got written to me. I said, give me that box, put it by the couch, got me on the couch. I said, I'm going to start reading some of these. You go out for the day. And so I opened up one of the cards, a newspaper article slid out and kind of went away from me, so I couldn't reach it. And I went through, and then later my brother comes out and says, hey, give me that article, but now I have no idea who sent it to me. And I read this article about a gentleman, a cyclist in Massachusetts, 6 years prior to my accident, but a mirror image. Like reading his, you could just put my story, my name where his name was, and same broken bones. Now he's from Massachusetts, I'm from New York, so I trumped him a little bit.
Of course.
He had 17 surgeries, I had 42. He spent 3 months in the hospital, I spent 5. He got 20 units of blood, I got 69. So I was like, I got you a little bit. But through the internet, I found this guy.
Wow.
This is a 6-year-old article, and I just went crazy on Google, putting his name in, taking that article apart, his doctors, where he worked, what they said. I called the bike shop that he worked at 15 years ago.
Really?
And they're like, yeah, we know him. Yeah, he's still in the area. I go, well, I'm going to send you a link to who I am because I don't want you to think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
And I would never give out someone's phone number to any stranger. So I'm going to send you a link. Can you read it? And then realize the urgency of why I need to speak to this man. So we have never met in person. still to this day.
Complete stranger
Complete
that you
strangers.
reached out
We
to.
email and we've talked on the phone, and I said to him, Fabio, his name is Fabio Slavic, and I said to him, you help me, and I'll do my best to help others. I said, I need you. Like, you've been there, because no one else could come into my house and say, hey, I was hit by a bus last week, and I'm doing jumping jacks now. He was back to cycling. He was back to living his life. He was married with kids and, happy. And he basically said to me, all the best things in his life happened after his accident. And that was like my light. I was like, all right, this is great.
Wow.
And so he did. He helped me. And then once it was over, I said, I need to be more accessible. I can't take 2 or 3 days on the internet to find Fabio, or the next person doesn't need to do that for me. So I started the I Will Foundation, and I put it on the internet, and I just figured that it would be just an inspiring story. Hey, I'm having a tough time, I got hurt, this, that. I found this guy, he did it, I could do it. And then it just turned into bigger.
So you started the foundation. Tell us a little bit about what sort of folks benefit from the I Will Foundation.
Well, our mission is to help people who have suffered life-altering illnesses or traumatic injury, all right, like myself. We want to help them get back into life. You don't have to be an Ironman, you don't have to be a marathon runner, but just live your life and not feel like you're secluded like I felt those months of when I was depressed. So we've been able to help. The first girl we helped, the first guy I ran the Ironman for was John Gleason. He lived on Long Island, cyclist, hit by a car after a 120-mile bike ride. Finished with 2 of his buddies, and all he had to do was cross the street, and a car plowed him while he was crossing the street. Wow. And he's got a phenomenal attitude, John, and had some complications, but we helped him with equipment, we helped him with training, we sent him to California to an aggressive stroke rehabilitation plant because he had a stroke during one of his surgeries, and he ran a 5K without telling anyone last week. Called me up and said, I just finished my first 5K.
That's great.
And he didn't care about the time, but he did it, him and his wife side by side. We helped him. We helped a girl who had a stroke at 33 years old become an Ironman. And she was a national ranked swimmer, and they told her she couldn't swim anymore because she couldn't turn her neck.
Wow.
And within a year of having the stroke, she did an Ironman in 11 hours and 30 minutes. And now we're helping a phenomenal guy that you'll see all over YouTube as well. After I did the Ironman, the bike company, they were so impressed they made another bike for me. And I wish I would have had it at the Ironman because all modern technology, electronic gear shifters, it was great. So I shipped the bike to Florida for a training trip with some of my friends. And the bike shop down there says, you got to meet this guy, Hector. They knew my story. And I met a guy who, about 15 years ago, was electrocuted. Blew both his arms off.
Wow.
One at the elbow, one at the shoulder. And he modified his own mountain bike and would be able to brake with his knee, but he couldn't change gears, with no hands. So I brought him up to New York with the foundation, and we had Paul from Signature build him a bike. And he puts the stump of his elbow, which is just a big muscle mass now. He has so much control of the muscle, he can hit the buttons to change gears, and he's cruising by people on the bike now at races. And he's going to come to New York with the I Will Foundation and do the first Ironman in New York next year.
That's fantastic. Wow.
So that's part of what we're doing.
So you're really starting to see the fruits of your labor with the I Will Foundation in action.
What I'm really, I really know why this accident happened to me for years or months after I asked about it. And I even have a partner book where I talked to a family priest. And, I know why now. I know why that I got in that shape. I know why I survived. And I feel like I have a purpose to just inspire.
You're inspiring and helping others. Wow. That's great. When word got out to the office that you were going to be coming, the Daily Show clip from earlier in the summer was circulating, which was great. You and John Stewart having it out for a few minutes. You had mentioned that you were competing in the World Police Fire Games, and what's next for you as an athlete? What are your plans?
Well, I'm going to try out for the Paralympic cycling team.
Nice.
So the Paralympics are in August in London, 2012. And I went out to Augusta, Georgia for the Paranationals in June. And I'm a Class 3 Paralympic national champion.
Congratulations.
Great. Before you clap, there is an asterisk. I was the only Class 3 that showed up to race. And when I realized that, I told the guy, I said, no, they had the podium set up, and I'm like, as much as I really want to be on that top box, I'm like, I'm the only one that showed up. So, and the guy's like, it's not our fault they didn't show up. You're a national champion. I said, all right, I'll get on the box.
And you're a competitor once again.
That's it, yeah.
Great stuff. So I want to open this up to questions from the folks here from the Google New York office. Some of you might be running your first marathon on Sunday, perhaps, and you've got a great resource here. So if you guys could, if you just wanted to step up to either of the microphones, and Matt, we'll open up to questions for Matt.
Thanks so much, Matt, for coming. And your incredible story. I ran my first marathon in New York last year, and I remember reading your book right before it, and huge inspiration to me. A lot of us here at Google and around in New York obviously still commute on bikes to work, and it's still a pretty big problem as far as safety and regulations. What do you think is the best solution as far as awareness, or as far as things the city can do, or both cyclists and drivers can do?
I don't want to get in trouble with the mayor, my friend, Mr. Mike. But personally, I think the bike lanes they're putting in are just wrong. I don't think they're thinking it through for the commuter of the cyclist. First of all, as a cyclist, you're told when you go to the park, if it's raining, the first thing you do is stay off the white painted line because it's slippery, and they paint the 4-foot bike lane all green. So it just doesn't make sense to me. But that's my opinion. New York is a busy place, and the cyclists have to really, let's face it, if you have an accident, we're the ones who are going to get hurt. The car may get dented, but nothing's going to happen to the car or the bus. That bus was still working the next day, and I was in the hospital for 5 months. So we, as cyclists, people who want to commute on a bike, you got to really just make sure you're visible and make sure you obey the traffic laws. I cheated the light here and there, but you have to try your best because you want to get to where you're going. If you're late, so be it. Better be late than not show up at all.
So thanks very much for coming today. I was thinking about something you said in the beginning, which is the mind is extremely powerful, and it's almost as much as the body. I think that's if I'm quoting you right. I just after the accident, and I was just trying to think of how I would react, and of course I have no perspective, but there's certainly a lot of people that you could have blamed for this happening. Transit union striking, the bus driver, whoever it was. So there's got to be a bit of resentment in the beginning, especially causing you to have that depression that you described. How do you get over that? How do you stop blaming everyone else and get to the place that you're at today, which is amazing?
Don't get me wrong, I did blame them.
Okay.
All right, I wouldn't have been on my bike that day if the strike didn't happen. So that's the way I look at it. And if I ever saw Roger Toussaint who called the strike, which I would tell him that. But you can't hang on to that. If you want to move forward in life, you can't hang on to the anger. You can't constantly tell or use an excuse that someone else is holding you back from getting where you want to be. And when I was depressed and when I was not moving forward in life, there's a couple of keywords that I like to use when I talk about it. It's like I wasn't dreaming anymore, I wasn't setting goals anymore, and I was just thinking about all the things that were taken from me because of that day. So once I let go of that, those are the anchors that were holding me back. And once I let go of that, everything, the mind took over with a positive attitude, and I started to change, and I started to see my strength coming. In that picture, I was 128 pounds. It was, once I got rid of those anchors, I started to see the strength come back. I started to see, hey, I went into a surgery and I woke up and I went, wait a minute, you mean I got the one I was supposed to get? And I really believe that the mind was now in control of that. And it was going to be up to me to do what I did. And I had the willpower to do it.
Got it. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Hi, thanks for being here. I'm really excited to read your book next week. I'm running on Sunday and I'm an emotional and nervous wreck. So I will give it
Don't
a
read
while.
it. Don't read it yet. Wait till Sunday night.
Okay. What gets you through some of these races and long runs? Do you have like a mantra you repeat to yourself or something you visualize? But like, what gets you through those 7 hours or the 16 hours?
Well, before my accident, I just fed off the crowd, the energy of the crowd. And I was lucky enough to race with good people and good friends that were faster than me, men and women. So I pushed myself to get closer to them in a race. I remember in one half Ironman I did with my friend Vicky and Frank Carino again. You'll hear those names all the time in the book. It's when I just started, my running was really coming around. And we start in different waves, so you'll see each other at different parts of the course. But I passed Vicky for the first time in my life on the run course, and she was like, whoa. And I said, where is he? Because Frank was faster than both of us. And she's like, what? We're in the middle of a half Ironman, 70.3 miles. And she's like, I go, where is he? She goes, he just turned the corner up there. And I was like, he was a lieutenant in the fire department at the time. And I yelled out, Lieutenant, I'm coming. And Vicky was like, you're crazy. So I just took off. And that's what motivated me before was the crowd. Like pick a person in front of you and say, see that purple shirt? I want to stay with that purple shirt. Or mile 5, I'm going to pass that purple shirt. And that will motivate you to keep moving. After my accident, now no matter how hard I try, I'm 16, 17-minute mile. So it's really what I would say to myself is I will. And a good friend gave me some advice once about a marathon and an Ironman. He said, listen, every once in a while, ask yourself, what can I do right now to make myself have a better day, to make this race better? And it could be next water stop, I'm going to get my cup of water and I'm going to walk. You're not going to win the race, So 5 seconds, instead of taking that paper cup and splashing the water in your face and getting just a couple of drops and now you're soaking wet, pull over to the side, drink it like a lady, throw it in the garbage and start running again. Whatever it is at that moment to help yourself have a better day, do it. And you'll just enjoy it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks very much for being here. This is very inspirational. I'm curious, this may be a little technical, but you talked about having to change the mechanics, and the pictures suggest that there's a lot of metal going on in your body. I don't really know, but
Yep.
how does it change the technique and the mechanics? What did you have to work on, and how is running that mile today different for you mechanically than it was 5 years ago?
Well, so I said I have a leg length discrepancy. My legs are the same length. Okay, but my pelvis was shattered so badly that the doctor, the best they could do, it's kind of like the right side is close to an inch higher. And there's like a 9-inch titanium screw that holds that there. But I remember going to see him and he apologized. He said, if it was a painting, I wouldn't sign it. He goes, it's not my best pelvis repair. I said, oh, okay. And he goes, but, I had the screw ready to drill it in and you were dying. So, do it now, fix it. So I said, okay, I'm not upset, Doc, I'm here. So I have special shoes made. So it took me a while to find a running shoe company that would make them for me, but this company, Zoot Sports, they're a triathlon, multi-sport company. I sent them what I was doing. Basically, I was taking my running shoe to a cobbler, and he was putting a piece of rubber on it that would make one shoe weigh about 2 pounds and the other shoe 8 ounces. So I would drag it. And so they, with that lightweight foam, whatever, they built an inch lift on the back of on a running shoe for me. So that helps. That helps me stay level. But as far as my muscle mechanics go, my right side, a lot of my stabilizer muscles and the big muscle groups for running, your hamstring, they didn't come back to full strength. So what I learned is that, the body wants to be healthy. People talk about, I can never do this, I have a bad back, Well, you probably have a bad back because you're not active. It's not you don't have technically a bad back. Your back hurts when you get off the couch because you're not treating your body right, and your body wants to be healthy. So when I was going through therapy in New York with the Wharton Performance guys when I was planning for the marathon, they would tell me, say, listen, don't worry about your weakness in this hamstring because the muscles around it are going to pitch in because the body wants to do it right. And it did. So I just had to talk to different muscles to keep moving. And that's basically how I had to keep those mechanics going.
Well, Matt, I know this is a really.
No.
Oh, sorry. Hey, please, one
Let's
more.
go. I have all day. You don't want to go back to work, do you? No. It's Friday. Google stops at 12 o'clock.
Matt, super inspirational story. I heard you speak up at Ironman Lake Placid this year when I was doing it. I had crashed my bike 7 weeks beforehand, so I just want to kind of get your feeling. I'm still really tentative on the bike from the crash in the half Ironman before Lake Placid. How did you get your mind to go, screaming down Keene, when you're worried about everything else and having been hit by the bus? How did you work your mind around that?
I got, which was great. I got up to, that was the best part of the race because 6 miles downhill. I got my bike up to 50 miles an hour. I can't do it in aero position like some people do. I hold on for dear life, but I think it's like anything else. It's like you have to kind of think back to being a kid. And kids try everything, try anything, fall down, get back up, do it again because they're not afraid. So you have to try to like lock that out, bring back that child inside you, and say, granted, you have to keep in mind the risk and the reward here. I say, go with precaution. I know a guy who's a phenomenal cyclist, but after he got married and had kids, he's on the brakes that whole time, and he used to just fly down. So you have to keep it realist for yourself, but find that inner kid in you, and remember how it was. Like, hey, you know what? If this happened when I was 12, once the cast is off, I'm back out there. So the same kind of thing you have to do, But as we get older, recovery time is what we don't have. That's why I don't snowboard. I remember trying to snowboard, and I fell like 6 times, and the next day I was like, oh, I can't move. I said, I just learned how to ski. Let me just keep skiing. I'm okay with that. But as you get older, you can't recover as fast. So just find that inner child in you and get rid of that fear. You'll be all right.
Thanks so much.
Hello. I'm wondering how you view yourself now versus how you thought of yourself before the accident. We all have a pretty good sense of ourselves. And then when something like that happens, your spirit's broken, and that's why you went through that phase. And some of the things that define us before something like that happens and they're taken away from us, causes us to think differently of ourselves afterwards. So how do you view yourself now?
Well, as Mr. Murphy said, I had a little bit of an ego. I was always a confident person before my accident, and that 2-year journey where it was kind of sucked out of me. I guess without sounding too cocky, I realized that I'm a tough son of a bitch. Basically, that's it. I got that from my parents, and I was put through an awful lot, and I wouldn't want my worst enemy to go through what I went through. But I know for a fact now that you don't do things by yourself. If it wasn't for my mom and dad, my brothers and sisters, my fire department friends and family, and Vicky, Frank, and Noel, the triathlete group that I trained with, if it wasn't for that support group, I'm a huge country fan. Kenny Chesney has a song, I Didn't Get Here Alone. Well, I didn't get to this point alone. And I know that now more than ever, that I relied on those people and those friendships to get me where I am and to make this recovery and this comeback possible. But I'm still a tough son of a bitch.
There's your mantra. Well, Matt, your story has been tremendously inspirational to me personally and to a lot of the folks here at the Google New York City office. I know this was a busy week for you with the New York City Marathon being Sunday, so for you to take some time out of your schedule, we really appreciate it. Thanks so much for coming, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you.